Good evening, bunny fans. How are we all doing? Don't want my background. I'm bonding this week. I've just put the bunnies to bed, but I was bonding, so there's cages in the corner and things rearranged because I had to make space for the bonding pen. Hope you guys are doing well. I thought I might jump on here and do a live stream and offer you some answers to your bonding and pre-bonding questions. So if you have any questions, then do jump on and let me know. Not entirely sure how it works, in all honesty. Hopefully we'll get the message when it if a comment comes through for you from you. So in the meantime, I do actually have some questions that were already submitted in advance, so I will go ahead and answer those. And if anybody wants to come on and join me, I'd love to see you. And I'm probably going to make this a weekly thing, so watch out on my social media feeds. I'm at Fiona Murphy, the bunny coach, on all the social media feeds. So come along and watch out every week for my Q&A thread, and then you can submit your question there for a chance to have your question answered. Okay, so I have a question from Anna, and she was saying that she has a male and a female rabbit, and the male is neutered and the female is not neutered, and can she put them beside each other to get used to each other? The girl isn't neutered yet. So I do recommend that you put them side by side. I think it can really help. I see it makes a big difference to rabbits that come into me for bonding when they have lived side by side, because it's almost as if they know each other a little bit. And sometimes if they are a bit aggressive towards each other through the bars, that kind of subsides over time, and they start lying together with the bars between them or eating either side of the bars. And those kind of behaviors then, once the aggression dies down, or may not happen at all, but those kind of behaviors can make a big difference to how they interact together later on, because they kind of know each other a little bit. I usually don't recommend it if your rabbits are not neutered yet, though, because the hormones just make them very aggressive and feisty and a little bit cray-cray. So I recommend that you don't do it until they're probably 2 to 3 weeks post-neuter, and then start doing it, because they take 8 weeks for the hormones to die down. So a lot of people think that the hormones just do this after they're neuter, but in actual fact they do this, and they have little hormone surges, but they do start to die down straight away. So if you wait for 2 weeks and then start putting them side by side, that will help things. Do make absolutely sure that they cannot get into each other. Do Fort Knox the place down, because they will be determined to get into each other. And if they get into each other, they will have a fight, because they're landing on each other's territory. They take each other by surprise. They do not know each other. They do not know how to communicate, and they will probably just go straight into fight mode, and you might end up with an injury. So only do this if you can do it safely, and if you can make sure that they cannot get into each other, because they can be pretty determined. So do bear that in mind. So I hope that helps, Anna. Let me know how it goes. If anybody is looking for pre-bonding help, I do a great class. I'll put the link in underneath, called Get Ready for Bonding, and it's all about this kind of stuff, pre-bonding tips that can help you, and also thinking about things like where where you can set up your pen. I have a lot of people come to me and say they don't have a neutral space, and you can make a neutral space. So neutral spaces are usually created rather than just there, because a lot of us have bunnies at free roam. So people often wonder how they're going to do that. So there's information in there about how to make a neutral space for your bunny ready for bonding, how to start thinking about time-wise how it's going to fit with your lifestyle, because I do believe that you do have to be consistent with bonding once you start, but you do not have to put your entire life on hold, and you cannot put your entire life on hold usually. So you are quite often doing things like going to work, imagine that, and maybe you have family that you have to take care of. So you do have to make time in your diary to do the bonding. Consistency does matter, so every day does make a difference, even if it's just a little session. But it's all about that kind of thing, how to make it fit your lifestyle, so that you can start thinking about it before you actually start bonding. There's also information on how to decide whether you're going to do 24/7 bonding, whether you're going to do dates, or whether you're going to do daytime bonding, and the differences and the advantages and disadvantages of the three of those. And then there's some information in there as well if you're anxious about bonding, because most people are, and that is totally normal. So if you're feeling anxious and nervous about it, you've got concerns about, is it cruel to keep your bunnies in the pen, in a small pen when they're used to free roaming, yourself, you're feeling anxious about it, maybe you've had a negative history, or you've read the horror stories of bonding, and things like what, how will you know when you can leave them? The kind of worries that I hear all the time are all put into that class. So it's an absolutely free class. I'm going to put the link in the comments for you guys. So if you're at the stage of not starting bonding yet, do download the class and see if it'll help you get prepared, because I think it probably will. Okay, so I had another question from Sarah, and she was saying that she has 3 single bunnies that she wants to bond, and she was wondering, should she start with 2 first and then add a third? So basically, no, because you're wasting your time. And do not waste your time if you can help it, because bonding takes long enough as it is. So basically, when you are doing trio bonding or any group of bonding, you're better off adding them all in together. Because if you bond 2 and then you add a third, what happens is your pair actually end up working out their hierarchy. They know who's dominant, who's submissive. They figured it all out. And then you throw a third rabbit into the mix, and that totally confuses everybody. So, and it takes longer then, because they have to start all over again, working out, am I the boss? Who's the boss? This new one, the boss? Who is the boss? So it really is honestly a waste of time. The quickest way to do it is just to begin with all 3. Sometimes there's an exception to that, where depending on the rabbit's dynamics and personalities, you might be better off doing the pair and then adding the third. But that very much depends on the bunnies that you're dealing with. Generally speaking, I would say no, start with the 3 and just get it done. That's probably the best thing. Okay, and then finally, I had a question from a TikTok user, and she is, what is she doing? She is bonding a pair, and she is adding 2 single bunnies to it. So she's saying that her bunnies are bonded. The 2 that are living, the 2 single ones, the baby ones, they are bonded. So they are brother and sister, as far as I can make out. They're brother and sister. She's got them separated because they're male and female, and obviously we don't want babies. And she is getting them neutered now, and she wants to add them to her existing pair. So she's had them housed beside each other to maintain their bond. So to a certain extent, it will maintain their bond a little bit, because they will be living side by side. Like I said earlier, they're living together side by side. They are getting used to each other's smell. They're keeping in the same mode of, oh, I can smell you and I can see you. That's fine. However, now that they're adults and now that the hormones are gone, they will want to work out a new adult hierarchy, and they may have forgotten how to communicate. And so it's not like bonding 2 rabbits that do not know each other, but it's not a complete bond either. So you're basically adding a pair and then 2 singles who know each other a little bit or knew each other as babies. So she was asking whether I had any tips for bonding multiple rabbits. So bonding multiple rabbits tends to be more complicated and take more time than a pair. So you have to bear that in mind, especially if within that group you already have an existing bond, because sometimes when you have an existing bond, the rabbits that are in the existing bond kind of tend to say, I don't know them and I'm okay with you. So why would I bother talking to those people? So it can take a little longer to sort of loosen that bond a little bit, enough for them to see the advantage of having other bunnies in the group. But also there's a lot of hierarchy dynamics going on. Quite often what I see with multiple bonds, whether that's a trio or quad or more, is that who is top dog comes out quite fast. It's quite obvious who is the boss. They lay down the law pretty quickly. But who is second and third and fourth or whatever in the group can take a little bit longer to actually work out. And that's the dynamics that you're working with. Every rabbit in that bond wants to know where they stand in the hierarchy, because it's so important to them. They really, really care where they stand in the hierarchy. And until that is sorted out, they cannot become friends. So bear in mind that it's going to take you a little bit longer. And then beyond that, there's an awful lot of variables within that. So I couldn't give advice over something like this about how to go about bonding them, because when I do bonding assistance for people, when I support them through a bond, there's a whole load of things that I take into account. So a lot of the advice online is do this and then do this and then do this, and that's how you bond. And it does not take into account how the owner feels about the bonding, whether the owner has ever bonded before, the history of the rabbits individually and also together, because that's very important. If you've got, for example, a rescue rabbit who has been neglected, abused, living in a hoarding situation in a cage with multiple rabbits that they had to fight their way for food and fight to stay alive, that's very different than a rabbit who has been from a baby with the same person, for example. And then there's dynamics that are going on. Like, say, for example, in this bond, the pair who are already bonded, did you bond them yourself, or did they come as a pair? What was the bond actually like? What is their relationship like now? And then the other two, what is their personalities like? What is your setup like? What kind of space do you have to do this bond? How do you feel about it? Have you bonded before, either the pair that you have already or in the past? And what was your experience of that? What kind of time do you have to devote to it? So my bonding support is always tailor made because it has to include all those things. Because I think that's a reason why a lot of people's bonds don't work, because they read generic advice and then they wonder why it doesn't work for their bunnies, because they're told it should work with their bunnies. So it's not their fault that it doesn't work out. It's not their fault that they think it should work out from that. It's very much implied online that this is what you do, and if this doesn't work, well, then you've just done it wrong, or your rabbits are unbondable. And actually, I totally disagree with that. Most of the time, rabbits are bondable. Most people are capable of bonding their bunnies themselves. Sometimes they need some guidance and support, especially if it's a little bit complicated or they're feeling anxious about it. Totally normal. But most people are capable of doing it, and most bunnies are capable of being bonded. So to just try one thing and then decide the bunnies are unbondable is the narrative that's out there, and it's because it's not tailor made to the bunnies. And things need to be kept trying until you find out. Things need to be kept trying. You need to keep trying things until you find the right thing that works for your bunnies. So there's lots of different things that you can do, things that you can tweak. You need to respond to the bond as it progresses, and the bunnies as they respond to each other's behaviors. And it's really about approaching it from that way rather than a step by step of this is what I have to do. So it needs to be tailor made to your bunnies, basically, and to your situation. And then you have much more chance of success because it's taken into account all the variables that are so important in the actual bond. So if anybody wants any bonding help, you could set up a bonding clinic call with me. I do a free bonding clinic twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays. I will drop the link below for that as well. If you cannot find a time that works for you, please let me know. Do make sure that you select your own time zone from the drop-down menu, because I'm in Dublin in Ireland, and sometimes it defaults to Eastern time in America. I don't know why. So make sure that you've got your own time zone, and then you will see the times that actually work for your own time zone. If you cannot find a time that suits you, please just drop me a message and I will find a time to talk to you. So these are 15-minute calls. They are bonding assessments, so we can chat about what is happening with your bunnies. What are you feeling about the bond? What are you worried about? What has happened with them in the past? What are you trying to achieve? All those kind of things. And sometimes it really just helps to get it off your chest to somebody who actually knows what they're talking about and actually understands, because people who do not have bunnies do not understand us. And even people who have bunnies do not always understand people who are bonding bunnies, because it is quite complex and it can be very stressful, and that's totally normal. And I'm here to take the stress away. So I'm quite happy to talk to you if you would just like to get it off your chest. But I can also share my options with you as well. So I work with people all around the world bonding their bunnies, and I basically do it over Zoom. And you can also have an option where you can send me videos of your bunny's behavior. You can send me pictures. You can ask me questions. You can talk to me when you're having a wobble, or you're worried about what's the next thing to do, or can I expand now? Can I add something now? Is it time to move them into their final living space? I can walk you through the entire thing step by step if you want me to, and hold your hand. A lot of people like to do that. So it's very easily done over Zoom. A lot of people ask me, well, how does it work when you're not physically there beside you? But actually, this is the next best thing to me being here beside you. Now, I do actually also, as you can see, do bonding here myself in Dublin and Ireland if anybody wants to send their bunnies to me. But a lot of my customers are in America, Canada, Australia, Europe. And we can nearly always find a way to help their bunnies get bonded. Basically, it's done, as I said, through Zoom and through reading the behaviors and through teaching you how to read the behaviors. This is what a lot of people find the hardest, is reading and responding properly to the bonding behaviors, because the rabbits behave very differently with us than they do with each other. So you can be totally surprised that your little ball of fluff that just melts into a puddle on your lap turns into a little tyrant in the bonding pen, and that can be a little bit of a shock to the system. So it can be very hard to know exactly when and how to step in, because they can seem to go into fight mode very quickly. But actually what's often happening is that there are signals that they're going to fight, and it actually goes into the fight before somebody has a chance to realize what's actually happening. So what I do is I teach you how to read the behaviors, because if you step in too early, which a lot of people are inclined to do and is very normal, we're inclined to step in too early because we don't want them to hurt each other, totally understandable. These are your fur babies. You do not want them to get hurt. But if you step in too early, they cannot work out that all important hierarchy, and therefore they might not bond at all, or if they do, the bond is not going to be strong. And someday when you're not there, they're going to have a fight and they're going to not know how to work things out because you're not there to help them. If we step in too late, we risk an injury. So there is a very, very fine line. And it's all about reading the behaviors and knowing when to step in and when to just watch and how to step in. And that is something that I can very easily teach you on Zoom. It is something that I teach everybody that I work with because you need to know because you're the one who's bonding. And I also give you a video of my bonding behaviors, no matter which option you are going for. Any of my paid options all include bonding, a video of my bonding behaviors. A video of bonding behaviors. So I basically, what I did was I videoed my own bonding sessions and I chopped it all down into little short videos, and each one explains a different behavior and explains to you what the rabbits are saying to each other and whether you should step in or not step in, and if you're going to step in, exactly how to diffuse the situation so that they're much less likely to go into fight mode. So that is something that everybody gets. And that makes a lot more sense to people because when you are when you're reading about the behaviors, you can read, oh, don't allow lunging. Nipping is okay, but biting isn't. Well, what's the difference? Do you know what's the difference between nipping and biting? What does lunging look like? And it can be very hard to decide what's chasing and what's just one rabbit just going after the little one, the other one a little bit, as opposed to a big chase. How much chasing should you allow? All that kind of stuff. So it makes more sense to people because they're actually watching the video of the bonding behaviors rather than in real rabbits, rather than just reading about it, basically. So that is something that is included with all of my options as well. So that is basically how I work. That is basically how it does work, and it works successfully. Very, 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 very high success rate. 98, 99% success rate here in person, and not far off that when I'm helping people online. There are variables when I'm working with people online because they don't always have the time to put into it, or sometimes life gets in the way and all that kind of stuff. Whereas when I'm doing it, I dedicate the time to it and I just get on and do it. So, but generally speaking, most of the time, I can help you find something that works for your particular bunnies. So even if you think your bunnies are unbondable, even if you've tried before, even if you sent them to a professional bonder, even if you've been told that they're unbondable by a rescue or somebody who's tried to advise you, that's not necessarily true. And actually, a lot of people who come to me have been in those exact situations and have been told the bunnies are not bondable or have already been to professional bonder, and we're still able to make it work. I have bonded over 290 sets of bunnies myself. I think I'm up to around 500 plus bonds supported in total between the ones that I've done here and the ones that I've helped around the world. So I'm really good at thinking outside the box and finding something that will work for bunnies rather than just following a standard method and then declaring they're unbondable. So they're probably not. It happens, but it's rare. So I'm going to let you all go now because I can't see anybody on. I could see a thumbs up and there was somebody viewing, but I can't see any messages. I don't know whether I would see any messages. So I'm going to end the stream. If I see any messages, what I'll do is I will either respond to them or I will pop them in for next week. I'll probably do this weekly and see how it goes. And I will drop the links below for the 15-minute call and the free Get Ready for Bonding Masterclass. So I hope that helps. Okay, guys, see you soon. Bye.